Hey guys, so in this lesson, we're going to be talking about specifically the string data type. So in the previous lesson, we talked about what are data types. So now we're going to be going in more detail of each data type. So in this lesson, we're going to be more focused on string. So I'm going to show you some examples and how to determine the data type of a variable. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do, guys, I got Visual Studio Code open, and I'm gonna write some code out for y'all, right? So we're gonna show you some examples, right? Kind of get you familiar with the text editor as well. So those of you who are new, go ahead and open up your editor and let's start typing. That's how you learn. Gotta get your hands dirty. So one of the things that we're gonna be doing is I'm gonna create a variable and I'm gonna call it name, right? And this name could be, let's call it Mike Jones. So one thing that I want you to notate here is, see how we have single quotes, but I also want you to know that it could be double quotes as well, right? So whether it be single or double quotes, in this case, it's going to identify the same data type, which would be a string. So our name here is Mike Jones. This is a string data type. So how do we confirm that, right? Like, what a data type is as well. So if I were to do a print statement, there is a type method that takes an argument. In this case, the argument is going to be our name, right? Our variable name, which is name. So I'm going to pass this in, then I'm going to run it. When I run it, we'll see down below, it's a string. See how we get this class, it says string? That is telling us that the data type of name is a string, which it is. Right? Because again, anything with a double quotes or single quotes is considered a string. So now let's kind of look at another example. Let's say we're dealing with address, right? So we're gonna do single quotes, and address could be 123 Main Street. So one thing you gotta keep in mind, right? Kind of how we talked about a little bit. What determines a string? So string is a combination, a sequence, better yet, of characters. So keep in mind the word characters. Characters do not mean text characters only. Character means anything. It could be numbers or it could be letters, whatever it is. It could be, periods as well, special characters. All of that, what makes up the word characters. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have the name of the street, right? Main Street. So if I were to pass this variable into my print type address, you'll see it is a string. So even though it does have numbers in it, because again, it's in single quotes, everything's together, this is still considered to be a string. So now let's do something else like age, right? So age should be, in most cases, would be a integer data type because it's a number, right? It's a whole number. But let's say we want to classify it as a string. Well, in order to do that, make sure that again, single or double quotes, and then you're going to specify, let's say, the age. Let's say it's 23. That's the age. If I were to pass age into our type method and run it, you will see it is a string right down below. It's still considered a string, even though it really isn't. It is numbers in this case, but because we packed it, right, we got it inside single quotes or double quotes, we're pretty much saying, hey, this is a string by default already. Python, anytime Python sees single or double quotes, it is determining that as being a string regardless. So in these examples, we literally have nothing but text letters, and this is a string. We could have a combination of numbers and letters together. Again, this is considered a string as well. Or we could have numbers, right? But again, along with the numbers are in single and double quotes, this is still considered a string. So all three of these are considered strings. It's not like this is a integer data type and this is not, or so forth. Everything considered a string. So hopefully that kind of gives a little bit more better insight when it comes to how to declare a variable that happens to be a string, which is, again, you have your variable name equals whatever your string is. And again, keep in mind that in order to assign a variable as a string, we're looking at a few things: single quotes or double quotes. And then regardless, as long as it's single or double quote, that's all that matters. It don't matter if there's numbers in there or a combination of numbers or letters or just all letters. All of it would be considered a string, period. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Also, when you're dealing with strings, this is just kind of a little bit more, some additional detail related to strings. You're able to, you could add strings together, but when you do that, you're really just concatenating values together. So again, if I were to do something like, let's create two more variables. We're going to call this first name, and this would be Mike, and then it will be last name, and this would be Jones. So let's say we wanted to create a new variable, and we're going to call this full name. Okay, we're going to call it full name. So keep in mind, we could take these two objects, which we know they're string already, and we could add them together, which would concatenate them. So in this case, it would be first name. Where's my plus at? Plus, and then it'll be last name. Now, here's the thing. If I were to run this, it would actually put everything together with no space in between. So a way to kind of work around that would be, I would add another plus, and ultimately, again, keep in mind, this is a space. A space is a string, right? Keep that in mind. It is a string. So we're pretty much saying string, and then another string, which is happen to be a space, plus another string, which means it's concatenating everything together. So if I were to print this out in my print statement, we would get the full name with a space in the middle, right? Because that's what we did in this case. There is another way to do this as well when it comes to, joining values together, and let's call this, let's call this full name 2. And what we're going to do in this case, we're going to end up calling the join method that we have. So the join method, the way that works is, again, it's all built in within Python. It takes a list of values, and based on that list, it would concatenate any number of strings together. So it kind of gives us some details in here. The strings whose method is called. So ultimately, here's a good example. It would take join, this is string, the first string, the second string, and the third string, all in a list. And then based on this value, that's what's going to ultimately concatenate it by. In my case, I want this to be a space. So the way I would do this would be, it would be space. Inside my list, I would put first name, comma, and then specify my second string value, which would be last name. So now if I were to run this, I would get the same results. See, this Mike Jones was from the first print statement. The second Mike Jones is from this full name 2. So these two ultimately give me the same results. You could just add them together like the way you add numbers. This is where, it comes in handy. Or you could use the join method to kind of, concatenate your values based on whatever character you want this to be. So again, guys, hopefully this gives you a little bit more understanding of string data types. Again, even though we may have a value of numbers, but again, if it's in a single or double quote, it is not a number. It is not an integer or whole numbers. This is not the case. This is actually considered string data type still. So hopefully, guys, this video helps. It's beneficial, and see y'all next time. Peace.